descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. And this we beg for Jesus Christ his sake. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Beal. Thank you, Deputy, for early assistance there. Members, we are now in session for today's sitting. Members, the confirmation of minutes for the 4th of June have been circulated. Are there any amendments required? No amendments. The minutes are confirmed as printed. Messages from the governor? There are none. Announcements by the speaker. I've received two matters I'd like to acknowledge today. MP Donkey and MP Swan have both indicated they will be absent today. Messages from the Senate? There are none. Papers and other communications to the House. This morning we have three papers. The first is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, would you like to present your paper?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to the listening public. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly the Registry General Annual Report for the year ended 31st of December 2020 and the Regulatory of Bermuda Annual Report for the fiscal year April 1st, 2017 to March 31st, 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy. The next paper communication this morning is in the name of Minister Labor. Minister Haley?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
I have the honor to attach and submit for the information of the Honorable House of Assembly, Trade Union and Labor Relations Transitional Regulations 2021.
Thank you. That's completion of papers and communications. We'll now move on. The next item is petitions. There are none. We move on now to statements from ministers and junior ministers. We have 6 statements this morning. The first statement this morning is in the name of the Deputy Premier. Minister, would you like to present your statement this morning?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Speaker, again.
Good morning. Go right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, today I laid for information the annual report of the Registry General for the year ended 31st of December 2020. The Registry General recognizes the essential role that vital statistical information plays in planning for the provision of services in areas such as tourism, health, education, and housing, to name a few, and has performed his duties to a high standard in the recording, collating, and presenting of the data to be included in the annual report. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Section 19 of the Registration, Births and Deaths Act 1949, the Registry General shall, within 90 days after the expiration of each calendar year, compile for publication in such a form and manner as the minister may approve a summary of the births and deaths which occurred during the year, together with a general report on the increase or decrease of the population of Bermuda. The registrar is required under Section 35 of the Marriage Act 1944 to publish a summary of marriages conducted each year. In preparation for the annual report, Mr. Speaker, the registrar has relied on information received from the Records Office of the King Edward VII Memorial Hospital relating to births from the local funeral, related to births, from the local funeral directors and medical practitioners in relation to death, and from local marriage officers and masters of Bermuda registered ships in relation to local and maritime marriages, respectively. Mr. Speaker, the report, which deals primarily with the vital statistics pertaining to the island's residential population, indicates that there has been a slight increase for the first time in 4 years in the number of births. In 2020, there were 540 births, an increase of 15 or 2.9% over the 525 births reported in 2019. Also, the birth rate of the population has increased by 0.3% per thousand, from 8.2 in 2019 to 8.5 in 2020. There was one baby born at the residence of the parents for the year ending 2020. This represents a decrease in the number of babies born at home 2019. Mr. Speaker, the distribution of live births by nationality based on information provided by the parents at the time of registration of their children's births for 2020 reflects 80% or 432 of the total live births have at least one Bermudian parent. In 2020, 108 or 20% of the births had parents who were both non-Bermudian. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as advised that in 2020, 566 deaths were recorded amongst residents. A death rate of 8.9 per thousand of the population for 2020 reflects an increase of 31 or 5.8 from 535 recorded in 2019. The report also indicates that there were 6 deaths in respect of non-resident persons. Also, there were stillbirths recorded for the 2019 period. Mr. Speaker, there was a decrease of 26 in the estimated residential population at the end of 2020 at 63,880, as opposed to the 63,906 in resident population estimated in 2019. At the end of 2020, there were 2,492 more females in the population figures. However, Mr. Speaker, from the report given and statistics recorded in 2016 and the statistics provided for 2020, it would appear there has been a significant drop in the population from statistics recorded prior to the year 2016. However, the population estimates were rebased in 2016 after the 2016 population and housing census. The rebase of the data is the reason why the population estimates are lower from 2016 forward. Mr. Speaker, for the year ending 31st of December 2020, there were 248 marriages performed in Bermuda of 138, or 35.8% decrease from the 386 marriages recorded in 2019. During 2020, marriages between parties who were both non-residents accounted for 48% or 19.4%, 48 or 19.4% of the total 248. This figure breaks the trend set over the past 5 years where marriages between non-residents to exceed the number of marriages between residents and marriages between residents and non-residents parties. The decrease was due to the COVID-19 pandemic, where the island had been on lockdown for a period and international travel activity had slowed down globally. The report also shows that there were 172 marriages between parties who were both residents and 28 marriages between a resident and non-resident. Mr. Speaker, of the total 248 marriages reported in 2020, 10 were same-sex marriages, which represents an increase of 6, or 150%, from the total of 6 same-sex marriages in 2019. 9 of the same-sex marriages were performed by the registry office as civil ceremonies, and the remaining same-sex marriages were religious ceremonies conducted by a local marriage officer at an outside venue. During the 2020 same-sex marriages between parties who were both residents accounted for 3 or 30% of the total of 4 marriages. The report also shows that same-sex marriages between non-residents accounted for 6 or 60%, and 1 or 10% accounted for the number of same-sex marriages between a resident and non-resident. Mr. Speaker, 70 marriages were performed on board 28 Bermuda registered ships in 2019. This total represents a decrease of 372 or 84.2% from the 2019 total of 442. Of the 17 maritime marriages, none were same-sex marriage ceremonies. The decrease was due to the COVID-19 pandemic that brought the cruise line industry to a halt in March of 2020. There were no maritime marriages registered between April and December of 2020. The cumulative number of marriages, local and maritime, processed through the Registry General for the year ended 31st of December 2020 was 318, as compared with 828 for the year ending 2019. Mr. Speaker, the Domestic Partnership Act 2018 allowed for the formalization of unions between parties. In 2020, there were 8 domestic partnership unions recorded for that period. 5 other domestic partnership ceremonies were performed at the Registry General Office, and the remaining 3 were performed at an alternative approved location as allowed under the Domestic Partnership Act 2018. In closing, Mr. Speaker, the annual report seeks to provide an illustrative statistical digest of vital events such as live births, deaths, stillbirths, marriages, domestic partnerships, adoptions, and re-registration of births for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Works, Mr. Birch.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to provide an update on the property located at 20 Princess Street in the city of Hamilton. The property was purchased by the Bermuda Housing Corporation in March 2008 with a view to developing the site. In the intervening years, funding was curtailed and the building was shuttered and boarded up. Mr. Speaker, members of the public will be aware that the property has been dormant for many years with little interest in utilizing it. Over the ensuing years, vagrants began to take over the property for illicit use, resulting in further damage and fires regularly erupting inside the building. Despite the Bermuda Housing Corporation frequently boarding up all the entryways to prevent illegal access and use of the building, the problem persisted. Mr. Speaker, we have had 3 approaches over the years. Nothing from 2008 to 2016, when the Bermuda National Trust, who wanted it donated to them, but expressed that it probably made more financial sense to demolish and rebuild. A private citizen in 2020 expressed interest for a business hub, and in early 2020, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation was working to repurpose the building and make it into their headquarters. However, following the most recent fire in December 2020, a structural appraisal was carried out. This report recommended a complete overhaul of the building, including installing new plumbing and electrical, structural repairs, costly restoration work, and finishes to the interior and exterior of the building. The estimated cost to bring the building up to code was $1.2 to $1.3 million. The report further stated that it would be more cost-effective to demolish the structure and rebuild, then carry out these costly renovations. Mr. Speaker, while the building's history was very much considered, in light of this information and the fact that the property was a health and safety issue for area residents and the adjacent Diabetes Association building, the Bermuda Housing Corporation took the tough decision to demolish the structure. Following confirmation that the building was not listed as a historic building, an application for a demolition permit was made in April 2021 and approved in May. Surprisingly, at no stage during the planning application process of advertising for objections did anyone comment, most notably during the 2-week period when the application was advertised. With the demolition permit in hand, the Bermuda Housing Corporation tendered the demolition work, which began earlier last week. Mr. Speaker, recently, however, following the chorus of objections, the Department of Planning contacted the Bermuda Housing Corporation to inform that albeit the building is listed, its location in a historic protection area and therefore requires planning permission to demolish. Since the stop work has been issued, work has ceased temporarily. As it stands now, the Bermuda Housing Corporation have resubmitted a planning application to seek approval to demolish the building under the Historic Protection Area protocols to the Department of Planning for consideration. Mr. Speaker, we note the new interest in saving the building following a lengthy period of silence in relation to the future of Wantley. We also note that none of the entities have any funding to support a renovation. Regrettably, as is the case with many old and vacant buildings, the cost of renovation is such that one could never get a return on their investment. Additionally, in our view, it makes no economic sense to simply renovate a building that sits on a quarter of the property when planning for better use of the site makes more sense. Whatever is finally built at the site will recognize the historical nature of Wantley. Mr. Speaker, I visited the site this week and in speaking with the contractor who has been retained to continue clearing out the building and removing overgrown foliage, he noted that more than 20 truckloads of debris had been removed thus far from inside the house. The contractor has been requested to salvage as much of the crown molding and other items of historical value for safekeeping. He noted that some of the vagrants are still returning for shelter each night, especially since the building is now wide open. The state of the building is such that the estimate for repairs, as is the case with any renovation, is likely to be higher than the current estimate. Mr. Speaker, it really is impractical for those who have a keen interest in retaining historical buildings to watch them deteriorate to a beyond salvage state, then raise objections to their demolition and simply expect the government to fund their rehabilitation. The current economic climate does not allow for the funding of such projects when there are a multitude of critical initiatives that go unfunded year after year. While we recognize that this is an extremely sensitive subject, in this economic climate it cannot be considered, and we shall pursue the planning process to achieve its demolition and thus remove the danger that the building provides those who illegally enter the site. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Labor. Mr. Hayward.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Minister.
I rise today to provide you with an update on the education, training, and employment programs executed during Phase 1 of the Department of Workforce Development's reemployment strategy. Additionally, I will elaborate on Phase 2 initiatives aimed at preparing Bermudians to take advantage of job opportunities and connecting them with jobs that arise. As part of the government's mandate, the Ministry of Labor introduced a national reemployment strategy to provide training, career development, and employment opportunities to better position unemployed Bermudians in their transition back into the workforce as we move beyond the pandemic. I am pleased to report that the Department of Workforce Development has continued to provide training opportunities for unemployed Bermudians through a phased approach. Mr. Speaker, I am truly grateful to all the public and private sector stakeholders who have partnered with the ministry in the development and execution of the numerous programs and initiatives that have benefited many unemployed Bermudians. I will now highlight a few of the achievements and employment opportunities realized as a result of these initiatives offered in Phase 1 of the reemployment strategy. To date, 13 new training, career development, and employment programs have been successfully delivered. Over 650 persons participated in various face-to-face, on-the-job, online, virtual learning, webinars, internships, apprenticeships, and training programs. Approximately 70 individuals have received part-time or full-time employment as a direct result of the training initiatives. Since November 2020, the number of unemployed Bermudians that has received employment opportunities through the Department of Workforce Development's Bermuda Job Board referral process is 388. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that the Department of Workforce Development is not a recruitment agency. The department's principal responsibility is to provide persons with the training, development, and support needed to ensure readiness should job opportunities arise. In a joint initiative with the Department of Financial Assistance, the Department of Workforce Development has completed personal employment plans for a pilot of 20 financial assistance clients. Employment plans include work readiness, financial literacy, and computer literacy training, along with individual career coaching and support. The department aims to achieve work readiness credentials for all able-bodied clients on financial assistance. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform the public that the Department of Workforce Development has now entered the second phase of the reemployment strategy. Phase 2 of the strategy will build upon the progress made to train and employ Bermudians in Phase 1. Phase 2 initiatives will focus on training, reskilling, upskilling, and utilizing the transferable skills of unemployed Bermudians. This strategy is to assist unemployed Bermudians to become better equipped and positioned to take advantage of opportunities that exist in specific closed and restricted job categories in the job market. Phase 2 will focus heavily on industry-driven initiatives that better connect training with employment opportunities for unemployed Bermudians in high-demand occupations. To this end, the following initiatives are currently in place. The Economic Stimulus Job Initiative. Mr. Speaker, 9 companies have expressed interest in employing Bermudians as apprentices and trainees, as well as experienced trade persons. The department has begun to reach out to the companies to determine what skill sets are required to make the appropriate pairing from the department's client unemployment database. The department aims to provide 20 job opportunities to employ Bermudians for their client base. To date, 4 Bermudians have been placed in employment, with another 16 going through the assessment stage for this new joint partnership with the Department of Works and Engineering. Mr. Speaker, industry-driven network partnerships. The department plans to continue forging additional partnerships with industry professionals and HR professionals, training providers, to broaden the range of on-the-job internships, virtual learning webinars, and online career development and training programs. Mr. Speaker, training and development programs. The department plans to expand its current vocational and technical programs to include new short and long-term certificate programs to increase employment opportunities that include on-the-job internships and experience for unskilled and semi-skilled Bermudians. New certificate programs will include, but are not limited to, IT certifications, coding, radiology, elevator mechanic, solar technicians, masonry, and automotive electric car technicians. Mr. Speaker, employment and industry engagement. The department will continue to collaborate and consult with key industry stakeholders and partners to discuss their specific employment needs and requirements for small, medium, and large-sized businesses. As recently as this week, the Chamber of Commerce has agreed to form a subcommittee to work directly with the ministry towards synergy on strategies to reemploy Bermudians. Mr. Speaker, I can report that through the public appeal to unemployed Bermudians, over 270 candidates have registered on the Bermuda Job Board. The department will follow a 3-step process in this regard. Number 1, it will assess all candidates. Number 2, it will refer suitable candidates to employers for potential employment opportunities, and it will provide the support needed to assist candidates in achieving their employment goals, including resume development, interview skills, and coaching in other areas. Mr. Speaker, despite Bermuda's workforce continuing to contract, creating increased levels of unemployment for Bermudians, the government remains committed to ensuring that we do all that we can to prepare Bermudians for job opportunities that exist and to connect them with these jobs where possible. As Minister, I will ensure that cross-ministry work of the Department of Labor remains focused and intentional in its multi-pronged approach to facilitating training and employment opportunities in the implementation of Phase 2 of the National Reemployment Strategic Plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The next statement this morning is in the name of the Minister of Education. Minister of Education, would you like to present your statement now?
Thank you and good morning, colleagues.
Morning.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to update my honorable colleagues about yet another exciting educational opportunity for the people of Bermuda. Today, I'm pleased to announce another initiative to promote the relationship between the Bermuda government and the University of the West Indies. Mr. Speaker, by way of some background, the University of the West Indies was founded in 1948 and is the largest and longest standing higher education provider in the English-speaking Caribbean. Currently, UWI is ranked in the top 4% of universities in the world. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda and the University of West Indies have developed a long-standing relationship as we have benefited from being an associate country member of UWI since 2010. As an associate country member, Bermudian students can enjoy and greatly benefit from the preferred tuition pricing that this relationship offers. Currently in the works is an MOU and articulation agreement between the Bermuda College and the University of West Indies, an agreement that will allow credits earned at the Bermuda College to be transferred directly towards a degree program in the UWA Open Campus. Mr. Speaker, we understand that going to university can be a large financial commitment. However, the Bermuda government is dedicated to fostering opportunities that allow our students to pursue their educational goals. Our commitment to providing opportunities to all students has been very consistent and clear. This government has always tried to reduce the financial hurdles preventing anyone from pursuing their educational dreams. With that in mind, we strongly encourage more Bermudians to take advantage of the preferred tuition pricing available through our relationship with the UWI so that they can follow their dreams and positively contribute to our island home. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to grow, foster, and renew the existing relationship between Bermuda and the University of West Indies, we are excited to offer Bermudians the opportunity to learn more about UWI through a live and interactive virtual open house on June 24th from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. We welcome high school graduates and their parents, college graduates, as well as mature students who are looking to continue their studies or change careers to attend this virtual open house. This virtual open house will give prospective students an opportunity to learn mostly about the open campus, which covers the distance learning programs of the University of the West Indies. The session will feature information on 1. The UWI's 800+ certificate, diploma, undergraduate, and postgraduate degree options. 2. On-campus and online learning facilities. 3. The application process. And 4. Student support services. There will also be a portion of the evening dedicated to answering participants' questions. Mr. Speaker, I am thrilled to share that those who register in advance to attend the virtual open house will be entered into a draw to receive one of 4 one-time tuition awards valued at $2,500 each when they enroll in UWI's open campus, which facilitates online learning. To register, please send an email to askus@gov.bm for more information. Mr. Speaker, the open house will be live streamed via Zoom and will be simulcast on CITV, the Government of Bermuda's Facebook page, and YouTube. Bermuda, we strongly encourage you to attend this open house to learn more about UWI. Mr. Speaker, as previously mentioned, the University of West Indies is currently ranked in the top 4% of universities in the world. We are encouraging Bermudians looking to pursue further education to consider UWI as a viable option. There are many opportunities available to Bermudians seeking higher education, and UWI is one of them. We ensure you that the Ministry of Education remains dedicated to creating new opportunities for our students to pursue their educational goals. This means thinking outside of the box and revisiting pre-existing relationships to make them more applicable to our needs today. Mr. Speaker, so to those who are about to graduate from high school, those who have graduated from high school and seek higher education, those who have their undergraduate certifications and want to pursue their graduate certifications, and those who are considering changing careers, please take advantage of the amazing opportunities offered through our partnership with the University of West Indies. Tune in next week, Thursday, to learn more about the university and the 800+ online offerings the university has to offer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Members of the second statement, the next statement is yours as well. Would you like to present that now?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I rise before you and my honorable colleagues to share about the summer program that the Department of Education will be putting in place for our students to help make up for the lost number of school days that have been experienced in the past school year. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected educational systems worldwide, with one of the major impacts being loss of learning time. Although we could not make up days lost during this school year, students will be given opportunities to engage in online learning programs and activities, and in some cases, in-person summer programs ranging from preschool to the senior school level. Mr. Speaker, let me first share about these opportunities for our students, starting with preschool iPlay Summer Boost program. I'm pleased that the Reading Clinic has partnered with the Department of Education to extend learning into the summer for preschoolers who are transitioning into primary school. 7 of our public preschools signed up to work with the Reading Clinics to have iPlay this year. iPlay refers to interactive phonological literacy activities for youngsters. Normally, the iPlay tutors would come into the preschools and screen all the preschoolers on pre-literacy skills, especially in the area of phonological processing. Phonological processing skills are those that are all about listening and sounds. Can children hear the difference in sounds in words and sentences? Can they hear the separate words in sentences? Are they able to notice rhyming words or words that begin with the same sound? Phonological processing skills are a strong predictor of later reading success, and it is more important for children to first be able to hear sounds than identify letters. Mr. Speaker, due to COVID-19 restrictions, the iPlay tutors had limited access into these 7 preschools. As a result, the program was delayed. The Reading Clinic was only able to screen our preschoolers during the latter half of the school year, leaving no time for tutoring these children identified as needing help with gaining valuable pre-reading skills prior to entering primary school. Because of the Reading Clinic's commitment to helping our preschoolers to have the best start to primary school and learning to read, they have joined with the Department of Education in providing an in-person iPlay Summer Boost for our preschoolers. The iPlay Summer Boost is offered to parents of those preschoolers who could benefit from a boost in literacy and extra support in phonological processing. The Summer Boost program will be offered in 4 locations: Port Royal Primary, St. Paul's Preschool, Lyceum Preschool, and St. George's Preschool, from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. during the month of July. The program is literacy-rich and play-based. All learning activities are centered around studying insects while being engaged in large groups and small intensive tutoring groups to teach pre-literacy skills, including those that target listening. The program mirrors a typical preschool day. We thank Government Estates and Workforce Development for joining the Department of Education to provide the Summer Boost through the Reading Clinic to our preschool. Mr. Speaker, our students at the primary and middle levels will have access to online reading and math programs throughout the summer. Many schools already have subscriptions to online reading programs for their students, programs such as Literacy Footsteps and RASKid. Students who attend primary and middle schools in the western zone of the island have access to the Achieve Reading Program. Online reading programs are available 24/7 and can be accessed using most devices. These programs will enable students to continue to read ebooks and take quizzes. This is the same as if they would normally do when in school. Progress will be automated. Reading programs will be able to access the results at the end of the summer. Mr. Speaker, for those students who do not have access to literacy footsteps, brackets, Achieve 3000, or other online reading programs offered by the school, the department is encouraging parents to subscribe to the online reading program, a free online reading program that will give students access to hundreds of ebooks, opportunities to take quizzes after they finish reading the books, and can also share their children's results with their school. Mr. Speaker, we want all of our students to spend time reading during the summer and to engage with these online reading programs. The department wants children to read every day. The minimum expectation is for all students to read ebooks for at least 30 minutes twice per week. And once they finish their ebook, you take the quiz, taking time to think about the questions carefully, to give careful answers with the aim of scoring a 4 out of 5 on the quizzes. We also encourage our students to take advantage of books offered at our local libraries. Mr. Speaker, let me focus on mathematics. The public school system is working to improve students' math knowledge and skills. I am pleased to report that we will offer an 8-week online math tutoring program during July and August for all primary and middle school students. The program will run every Tuesday and Thursday from July 6th to August 24th, with specific times allocated for school year level groupings of students. Mr. Speaker, this online program is being developed and personalized for our primary and middle school students based on the end-of-year math assessment results, which have been analyzed to determine gaps in learning. Additionally, each teacher in the system will receive a gap analysis report for their class, and every parent will also be provided with a report that indicates what their child has mastered, partially mastered, or not mastered. Parents will receive a schedule of when tutoring will be provided for specific topics. Students may sign on for all tutoring sessions. However, we especially want parents to ensure that their children sign on for tutoring sessions that may match their learning gaps. After each session, students will be shown how to use their Method Max account to practice the skills that have been demonstrated. They will receive instant feedback as they progress, and all lessons will be recorded and shared on the ministry's website so that students can revisit them as part of any later revision. Mr. Speaker, the tutoring sessions will focus on deeper conceptual understanding as well as procedural modeling, and international expert math teachers will deliver these sessions. The engagement of math experts is possible because of the department's partnership with the UK-based organization, Primal Academic Innovation. Students will have access to will also have access to Dreambox during July and August. Mr. Speaker, the question has always been asked, what about students who do not have access to the internet? The department has planned for that. Students who cannot access online reading and math tutorial programs will be provided with subject-specific learning packets for core subjects of reading, writing, and mathematics. Schools will be asked to identify students who do not have online access. The parents of these schools can contact the Department of Education and collect from the offices learning packets for children from T1 to M1 that can complete during each week of the summer break. The packets will be provided to students who will have answer keys, and this will enable students and parents to get immediate feedback on student progress with learning activities they have completed. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with the Department of Education will offer its annual summer school program at Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy during the month of July. This program, which runs from 8:30 to 3:30 p.m., is for students who attend Dame. There's also an after-school program which runs from 3:30 to 5:30. While the program is very much fun-based, the program's primary goal is for students to continue to work on their current individualized education plan, or IEPs, goals, and reinforce the skills that they have mastered during the school year. Students will participate in activities such as VinReach, and they will continue to receive art and music therapy. Mr. Speaker, the summer program at Dame is delivered by the staff at Dame and other carefully selected applicants. The team for summer school also includes the school's nurse and social worker. All staff who work at the summer program must participate in a mandatory 2-day orientation and planning and preparation session. This year, staff orientation will be on July 1st and 2nd, as students are scheduled to commence on July 5th. Mr. Speaker, the overarching outcomes of the summer program at Dame are: 1, 100% of the students pursue a minimum of 2 IEP goals with 1 objective per goal. 2, 100% of the students participate in small group or individual adaptive PE sessions. 3, 100% of the students participate in community-based activities at least once a week. And 4, 100% of students receive a database progress report at the end of the program. Mr. Speaker, STEAM Academy is offered every summer. Students from Primary 4 to M3 have an opportunity to register for the Department of Education's virtual STEAM Academy this summer with the theme Pandemic Vibes, Making the Shift. This year's STEAM Academy will provide an amazing outlet for our students who have been extremely resilient during this COVID-19 experience. The annual program, operated by the Gifted and Talented Education Program, better known as GATE, will be delivered remotely from July 5th to the 28th at a cost of $65 per week. Using online tools, students will engage in remote learning classes from 10 a.m. until 2:15 p.m. With a focus on project-based learning, students will create a collaborative motion picture from script to screen reflecting their COVID-19 experience. They will be writing scripts, composing music, creating visual animations in 2D and 3D, and ultimately producing a collaborative motion picture. Mr. Speaker, students at the STEAM Academy will once again have the opportunity to participate in activities offered by Tempo and Digibotics to provide a comprehensive array of opportunities for students interested in STEAM. Tempo, under the directorship of local music director Ms. Matilda Jennings and a team of local experts in the visual and performing arts, will immerse P4 and M3 students in the multifacets of dramatic and vocal performance and musical composition. Hosted by Mr. Neville Zul and his team, Digibotics will immerse P5 to M3 students in 21st century learning experiences that develop digital content creation skills. The team will work with students as they create 2D and 3D masterpieces while exploring the world of stop motion animation and digital effects. Student applications will be accepted on a first-come, first-served basis. Interested parents can register their children by completing the online registration form at www.steamacademycomputer.com. Parents are encouraged to register their children quickly, as it's a great opportunity for students to demonstrate their skills, their talents, and be creative while increasing their knowledge and learning to work together as a team. Mr. Speaker, the department will also be providing summer school for students in the primary and middle school functional skills classes and for students in functional academics classes at the middle school level. The program will run from July 5th to the 28th with a daily schedule from 8:30 to 3 p.m. The morning class will focus on academics connected to students' IEP goals and objectives and curriculum content in math, English, and science for the functional academic students. The afternoon classes will focus on life skills, physical, social, and health sessions. An adaptive PE teacher will also work with the students on their IEP goals. Students will participate in field trips to Winreach, Tulo Valley Plant Nursery, and Kaleidoscope. Mr. Speaker, at the senior school level, the 2 senior schools will provide a summer school program for credit recovery and skills improvement. Students enrolled in the program will include those who have previously taken a course and failed, or those who have passed the course but want to improve their grade. The school will deliver the programs for English, mathematics, social studies, science, and foreign languages using a remote learning platform. There will be opportunities for select students to attend in-person class. The summer program will run from July 5th until July 27th, with morning and afternoon sessions held from 9:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. respectively. The program will also afford students an opportunity for independent practice daily to be able to provide students with additional support as necessary. Both schools will facilitate their respective learning, their summer school programs independently. However, teachers will collaborate through common planning, common and for learning support students. In closing, Mr. Speaker, we will be using some of our donated Chromebooks during the summer month. I'm pleased to report that we have teachers from 5 primary schools and 1 middle school piloting the use of Chromebooks with approximately 200 students. 2 classes at Francis Patton Primary, 2 classes at Harrington Sound Primary, 2 classes at Heron Bay Primary, 2 classes at Purvis Primary, 2 classes at St. George's Prep, and all M1 students at Whitney Institute Middle School. An orientation meeting has already been held with teachers taking part in the program to provide pilot program overview, goals for the pilot expectations, minimal lessons and surveys, communication protocol within the group, the overview of Chromebooks and support channels that will be available. The piloting of the Chromebooks is well underway in each respective school. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, just a comment. If you intend to speak late in the day, you may want to adjust your system because you kept fading out, particularly near the end of your statement. Your audio was dying out back and forth.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, thank you. The next statement, which is the last statement this morning, is in the name of the Minister of National Security. Minister Meehan, would you like to present your statement?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Speaker and listening audience. Mr. Speaker, I rise to provide this honorable House with an update on the important work of the Ministry of National Security's Gang Violence Reduction Team. The last quarter saw the Gang Violence Reduction Team diligently at work in the community with a proactive approach that has proven to be quite effective in both the neighborhoods and schools. Mr. Speaker, honorable members will recall that the Gang Violence Reduction Team has been charged with the strategic development of prevention and intervention programs that target our at-risk population. Mr. Speaker, over the past 4 months, the Gang Violence Reduction Team have noticed a spike in attempted home invasions and robberies, allegedly from known gang members and affiliates. With that being said, the Gang Violence Reduction Team continues to actively use and implement their multi-pronged approach in the affected communities. In order to lower community tensions, the Gang Violence Reduction Team increased its focus on street-level outreach throughout the shelter-in-place curfew and other emergency measures. The Gang Violence Reduction Team continued to visit targeted neighborhoods and build connections and relationships with at-risk young people and their families. Mr. Speaker, the team continues to show a visual presence throughout the island as they visit the various homes and neighborhoods, especially those that are impacted by antisocial behaviors. The Gang Violence Reduction Team provides intervention through the formation of trust-based relationships that serve to de-escalate and mediate tensions when necessary. Mediation of the tensions and conflicts has been a direct and inclusive of individuals from all areas. The outreach work of the Gang Violence Reduction Team has connected many at-risk individuals to various resources and long-term solutions that provide case management services. The goal is to steer these young people towards proactive, quotient, and pro-social activities that provide a range of opportunities for change. This has not been without its challenges. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, on April 6, 2021, Bermuda experienced its first fatal shooting. Again, I extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Jordan Bridge. Another Bermuda family is now mourning because of senseless violence. We also have our hearts and prayers to the latest victim as well. Mr. Speaker, the Gang Violence Reduction Team's Coordinated Crisis Response Unit, commonly known as CCR, has been steady at work. Since the beginning of the year, the team has been deployed 6 times to support the community through emotional hardship and serious incidents. The CCR unit have reported to the hospital several times and made several home visits to affected families, along with targeted community assessments after each incident. The CCR unit had trained staff in place to provide immediate emotional support to the affected families and areas. They also provide immediate triage in order to mitigate the effects through general support, counseling services, and aftercare. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to announce to this House that the Redemption Program has been operational for the past 20 weeks. The 13 trainees have not only expressed their desire for a better life, but they are applying the skills They have learned towards a pro-social and productive path, and that can be seen within the program. The trainees have been placed in various local businesses around the island to complete 30-week work placements with the Gang Violence Reduction Team's business partners. Each trainee has participated in weekly job coaching sessions, weekly case management sessions, life skills sessions, job readiness workshops, and career exposure sessions. On a case-by-case basis, the team has provided crisis support and educational support as needed. Mr. Speaker, the Gang Violence Reduction Team has delivered 95 individual case management/job coaching sessions with Redemption Program trainees. Additionally, the team has supported trainees through 15 crisis situations. Since the program was launched 20 weeks ago, the team have delivered 25 sessions covering key areas which include job readiness skills, life skills, career exposure, goal setting, and general personal development. The Gang Violence Reduction Team is now working with each trainee to secure each of them a full-time employment opportunity and/or a full-time education opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to announce the following. 3 trainees were offered a full-time job during their training placement and have recently transitioned into their new role. 5 of our current business partners have plans to transition their current redemption program trainees to part-time or full-time employment. 4 of our current trainees are actively seeking full-time employment and/or part-time employment. The Gang Violence Reduction Team are supporting these trainees to prepare resumes and applying to various businesses for jobs. 1 trainee has enrolled at the Bermuda College for the fall 2021 semester. Mr. Speaker, the Gang Violence Reduction Team has also remained in touch with many targeted schools, although many formal programs were temporarily suspended during the past year due to COVID-19 regulations in our schools. The team has continued to work with the school administration and student services teams at targeted primary schools, Cedar Bridge Academy, Barclay Institute, and Success Academy to provide support services for at-risk students. The team visits the schools on a daily basis to provide incident management support, mediation services, individual student support sessions, restorative sessions, and small group sessions. Through these ongoing interactions, the Gang Violence Reduction Team, along with other service providers, are able to help students realize their self-worth and see the many opportunities of self-improvement available to them. Mr. Speaker, the Gang Violence Reduction Team are preparing for summer programs and targeted prevention outreach initiatives. They have worked closely with targeted student service teams to identify at-risk students who will need extra support and connection as the summer break begins. The Gang Violence Reduction Team plans to connect younger students to camps and with local charity scholarships if needed, and they will check in and provide small group sessions to engage older students that have been identified. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the summer break, the Gang Violence Reduction Team have selected a new cohort of students for the summer work placement and mentoring program. The summer work placements are structured to equip the students with the skill sets for future employment. The program is due to commence on July 5th, 2021, and will employ 16 targeted young people with an 8-week paid experience at local companies. The young people have been chosen from the Gang Violence Reduction Team's high school intervention programs, case management services, and Success Academy students. Mr. Speaker, the program provides the 16 young people mentoring support to ensure their success in the workplace. The program was created to address the void in professional development opportunities for young people who have participated or can be prone to antisocial behavior and have subsequently been labeled as troubled teens. This program provides on-the-job work experience along with the mentorship and coaching. It is intended to offer a satisfying and meaningful work experience whilst building the skills and knowledge needed to transition to sustainable long-term employment. I would like to wish the 16 students all the best as they take on this challenge. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the Gang Violence Reduction Team for their work and add that they cannot do this on their own. I encourage all of us who love this community to roll up our sleeves to assist with stamping out the gang culture on our island. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's close of the statements for this morning. The next order this morning is reports of committees, and there are none. That brings us to the question period. And this morning we have two sets of written questions. The first, however, is being deferred until our next sitting. That's the questions to Minister Wilson from MP Dunkley. So we'll move on to the second set of questions. The second set of questions are from MP Richardson to Minister Hayward. There are three questions, and each one is indicated that they would like that the member would like an oral response. And as I set the clock for our 60 minutes, MP Richards, would you like to put your first question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Honorable Minister please inform this Honorable House how many unemployed Bermudians with interest in closed job categories were identified before closing those categories?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, as the Honorable House is aware, the unparalleled level of unemployment that Bermuda has experienced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic has translated into Bermuda's worst job crisis in recent history. As employment levels declined, this government did not hesitate to immediately pivot to ensure that policies were put in place to protect jobs for Bermudians and to prevent further contractions of our Bermudian workforce. Although the government does not have a means to directly identify the number of Bermudians who have an interest in working in the said closed categories, the government is aware that there are a large number of Bermudians who are seeking employment opportunities. The government used the following methodology to identify additional categories for closed and restricted work permits. Data was collected from the Department of Statistics that identified the number of positions in proposed closed and restricted categories traditionally held by Bermudians. The number of positions identified were compared to the number of work permit holders in those categories based upon reports from the Department of Immigration. The ministry cross-referenced this data and analyzed it to identify areas of capacity and demand. Additionally, at that time, data from the Department of Financial Assistance suggested that there were over 1,390 individuals displaced from the workforce, and out of that, 396 were in the hospitality industry. The detailed reporting to DFA included the previous place of employment for the 1,390 applicants received, which assisted in the identification of job categories to close. Consequently, this government stands by its position of taking strong measures to protect Bermudians in the workforce, which includes the moratorium on issuing new work permits for closed categories to ensure that every Bermudian who wants to work has a greater opportunity to be hired.
Thank you. Supplementary, MP?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The
Honorable Minister said the unemployment has risen. What is the current unemployment rate, and how many people are unemployed?
Thank you. Minister?
The most recent labor force report has not been released to the public, and I believe that once that is released to the public will be well aware of what is the current unemployment rate. But based off of data that I've received within the ministry, I am clear that the unemployment rate has close to doubled.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary.
Not good.
What is doubled from what?
The previous rate, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. What
Supplementary.
yeah.
Opposition leader, put your supplementary.
The minister indicated that the statistics were derived from the Department of Statistics, Financial Assistance, and from his department. Can he give us the date of those statistics? Were they 2021? Were they 2020? Can he give us the date of the statistics used and drawn from the Statistics Department of Financial Assistance and Immigration?
All data would have been Mr. Speaker, all data would have been retrieved in the year 2020 prior to making the announcement to close job categories. The data would have been derived at the time. Then the policy analyst within the Ministry of Labor would have reviewed the data to make its deliberations on closed categories.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. MP Richards, do you have, well, you used your two supplementaries. Would you like to put your second question?
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. MP Pearman.
MP
Pearman.
Pearman, you have a supplementary for that first question? Go ahead.
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. You said that the unemployment has doubled from the previous statistics. Roughly, what were the previous statistics numerically?
I believe that is public information, Mr. Speaker.
Well, second supplementary, is the Honorable Minister...
Second supplementary, go ahead.
Is the Honorable Minister able to inform the Honorable House roughly what that number was and what the number is now that it's doubled?
Mr. Speaker, again, that is public information that has already been released to the public.
Meaning it's in the public domain, so the member can find it in the public domain. MP, Pearman? Thank you. Any other member have a supplementary for that question? None? MP Richards, would you like to go to your second question?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're ready.
Will the Honorable Minister please inform this Honorable House how many unemployed Bermudians have been hired and in which categories, since those categories have been closed?
Mr. Speaker, first, I will be remiss if I didn't remind the House that the Department of Workforce Development is not a recruitment agency, meaning it does not place Bermudians directly into jobs. Therefore, the government only has data on the Department of Workforce Development's direct clients. For clarity, Department of Workforce Development's role is to provide funding for scholarships, apprenticeships, and internships, and providing training and career counseling so that its clients are better positioned to find jobs. That being said, the number of unemployed Bermudians that have received employment opportunities through the referral process at DWD to various sector businesses and employers is 388 between November 2020 and Thursday, the 17th of June 2021. High demand areas of employment in the restricted and closed job categories include residential cleaning technicians, waiter servers, general bartenders, administrative assistants, general handymans, general laborers, landscape gardeners, entry level, and electricians.
Thank you, Minister. MP, do you have supplementary?
I don't, Mr. Speaker.
Anyone else have a supplementary? None? MP, you can put your third question.
Mr. Speaker, I think MP Jackson had a supplemental.
Oh, I missed that. MP Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Put your supplementary.
Yes, I'm just curious what performance measures you have then if you're not aware of the number of people who then become employed after going through the workforce development training programs.
Mr. Speaker, I believe the member is a bit confused. In my ministerial statement, I highlighted the outcomes of phase one strategy, which included direct employment from our training programs, plus the direct referrals from DWD, which afforded persons opportunities to gain employment in Bermuda. And so we are tracking and monitoring the employment statistics that come through the Department of Workforce Development. The question that the Shadow Minister asked was pertaining to the industry-wide statistics throughout the entire economy, and that is data that we currently do not track.
Supplementary?
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. MP Richards, would you like to put your third question now?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With so many businesses impacted by COVID-19 and its ongoing impact, will the Honorable Minister please inform this Honorable House the data that has been collected and what impact this policy has had on local businesses so far?
Thank you. Understood?
Mr. Speaker, the impact we have seen on businesses affected by COVID-19 has been mixed. It is the experience of the ministry that closing categories of work permits has impacted businesses in terms of hiring. This is what the ministry would expect, as the policy has forced employers to fully consider Bermudan applicants, which is the desired outcome of the policy. Some businesses have appealed to the ministry to reapply for work permits, suggesting that Bermudians are not suitably qualified. However, with the Bermudian workforce continuing to contract, creating high levels of unemployment for Bermudians, I stand committed to ensuring that the government is doing all that it can to prepare and equip Bermudians for job opportunities so that they can be suitably qualified to meet the business demands, specifically in restricted and closed job categories. The Chamber of Commerce, in consultation with the Bermuda Hotel Association and the Bermuda Employers Council, wrote to the ministry indicating that they wish for 9 of the 53 closed job categories to be excluded. They are limited to 1, kitchen porters, reporters and journalists, seasonal work permits, waiter servers, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, handyman, hot washers. The ministry will do a full assessment with all the data available to determine which job categories remain closed after July 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Can I hear supplementary?
Okay. MP Kender, put your supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, if you could, based on the impact, can you tell us which industries have been positively affected by COVID-19, per se, that they've had seen an uptick in business and employment?
Minister?
I don't have data on which businesses have been positively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't have that information, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
And I wouldn't know how to obtain that information either.
Okay.
Or even measure the positive impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
I'm sorry, did he say that he wouldn't know how to collect?
Yes, you did.
I think basically what you're saying is not the type of information that they've been tracking, so you can't provide the information for you.
Okay, second supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
You're right here.
I would endeavor to believe that the whole purpose of surveying and the likes by the ministry would be to delve directly into what's going on through COVID-19 and exclusive of COVID-19 to really understand where the opportunities lie. And so with my previous question, I was just simply attempting to find out whether or not they saw any opportunities. Obviously, then they haven't seen any opportunities. Then should we not look at trying to gather this kind of information to help people find employment?
Mr. Speaker, as stated in my statement this morning and the answer to the parliamentary questions provided, I stated that we were able to directly link 70 individuals with jobs, and I spoke to some of the job categories that individuals were able to find employment, especially as it pertains to the 388 persons who have found employment through the referrals system within the Department of Workforce Development. And so I have already indicated that high demand areas of employment in restricted and closed job categories include residential cleaning technicians, waiter servers, general bartenders, administrative assistants, general handymans, general laborers, landscape gardeners, entry level, and electricians.
Okay. Anyone else have a supplementary?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
MP Richards, you have a supplementary?
Yes, I'd like the minister to clarify. Would the minister please clarify in his earlier answer to question 3? He said something about applications, Bermudian applications not being fully considered. Does he? What did he mean by Bermudian applications were not being fully considered?
Minister?
I don't believe I used those terms. What I'll do is clarify. It is the experience of the ministry that closing categories of work permits has impacted businesses in terms of hiring. This is what the ministry would expect as the policy has forced employers to fully consider Bermudian applicants, which is the desired outcome of the policy. Some businesses have appealed to the minister to apply for work permits, suggesting that Bermudians are not suitably qualified.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, that my first supplementary, the Honorable Minister just said it again, fully considered in his response. And that was what I was asking for clarification about. What does he mean by that it's not being fully considered? That other applications are not being fully considered? Is there some evidence that people aren't favoring or are favoring non-Bermudians? What did that mean?
Minister?
This is what the ministry would expect, as the policy has forced employers to fully consider Bermudian applicants, which means that if there is the availability of foreign labor, yes, some employers do prefer foreign labor over employing Bermudians. And so if you remove the ability for those employers to hire foreign workers in those occupational categories, it forces employers to fully consider the Bermuda applicants.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a supplementary?
I have a supplementary, Mr. Speaker. I was just trying to get clarification on my first one. And
I let it slip through, but because you basically asked to restate with your first question.
Yeah, that's all, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't sneaking another one. This is my last supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, it is your second one, your last one.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Given that there is some evidence that businesses were favoring non-Bermudians, does this result in any kind of investigation or enforcement action? Is this conduct permissible?
I don't think favoring non-Bermudians is a infringement on immigration laws. I believe that if they're discriminating against Bermudians, and it's been demonstrated that there is a level of discrimination, that does lead to enforcement. And where those items have been investigated, we do proceed with enforcement from an immigration standpoint.
Thank you,
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary?
MP Perman.
Perman?
Thank you. Honorable Minister, the question originally posed was about the data that your ministry is gathering. And you were asked a question by MP Cannoneer as a supplementary about finding out what businesses may have benefited from COVID, if any. You said you didn't know how to gather that data. What data is the ministry gathering?
Mr. Speaker, as an answer to my first question, we specifically talked about the data that we utilize to form the basis of our decision to close categories. I clearly explain and highlight what data we use. We use data from the Department of Statistics, we use data from the Department of Financial Assistance, and we use work permit data from the Department of Information. And so a combination of that data allowed us to make an informed decision as to which categories we should move into the closed category area.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Second supplementary, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. You've identified 3 categories of data that you gather, which were being gathered before COVID. Were there any specific lines of inquiry and data gathering as a result of COVID?
Mr. Speaker, this data was gathered after the COVID pandemic has started. And so we collected the data before we initiated the strategy in November 2020. And so this would have been data collected during the COVID-19 pandemic and not prior to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Does any other member have a supplementary? No further supplementaries. That brings us to a close of the written question period this morning. We'll now move on to the questions from statements given this morning. And it appears every statement has questions this morning. The first, Deputy Premier, you have a question this morning from the opposition leader. Opposition leader, would you like to put your question now?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead.
The minister spoke of maritime marriages, and he provided the accompanying statistics on maritime marriages on Bermuda registered ships. Conversely, can the minister provide details on the procedures for maritime deaths on Bermuda's registered ships? What procedures are followed?
Thank you. Minister?
My report of death is about a report of the number of deaths. The actual report. The procedure is a totally different type of matter, and I didn't refer to procedures in my statement. Bearing that in mind, I'm happy to get advice from the Registry General and pass on information and undertake to the opposition leader if he can advise me on the procedures related to maritime deaths. As the member would note, due to the closing down of the shipping industry, cruise ship industry, there was very little activity related to ships. But I will check to see if there is any information on the procedures on how maritime deaths are handled, because I didn't refer to maritime deaths in my statement specifically.
Thank you. Understand? Supplementary?
Supplementary.
Okay, supplementary.
I understand and I accept the minister's undertaking, but we have Bermuda registered ships which are not cruise ships, cargo ships, and other boat carriers, etc., that are registered in Bermuda. And so there may be deaths on those vessels in international water. And as those ships are registered in Bermuda, I would have thought that the deaths, maritime deaths, would have been recorded. So that my follow-up question is, does the minister have any details on the number of deaths on Bermuda ships, rather the cruise ships or otherwise?
Understand?
As I think a part of my same answer has already been is to this, in that there was no reference to maritime deaths in my report. But I think the honour member would know, Mr. Speaker, that the Bermuda Shipping and Maritime Authority handle the other classes of ships and details around what happens on ships that are registered in Bermuda. So perhaps the Minister of Transport can get that information from the Bermuda Shipping and Maritime Authority, but I will undertake to see if the Registry General has information on those matters. But okay, Bermuda registered ships and like the details around most of those ships and what happens is something that the Bermuda Shipping and Maritime Authority would actually have available. But I will get clarification, and I've been advised by the Registry General that is correct, that the information that the honorable member is asking about will be with the Bermuda Shipping and Maritime Authority. But I will endeavor to see what I can extract, okay, for the benefit of the honorable member.
Supplementary?
Yes, if the information is with the Maritime and Shipping Authority, I accept that. Then shouldn't there be an obligation for them to register the information with the Registrar General?
I'm sorry, can the honorable member repeat the question? Because there was a lot of like reverberation in the background. I didn't hear it very clearly, Mr. Speaker.
Basically, you're saying that if the information is gathered by the other department, is it a requirement for that department to register with the Registrar General?
That's correct.
Mr. Speaker, I've been advised by the Registrar, it is our department. There were no deaths within the period that I am reporting on Bermuda registered ships at all. But what I will do, because the honorable member did ask another question, is to get information from the registrar on the process process around deaths on the Bermuda ships. I will do that, but there were no deaths on any Bermuda ships, and in fact, it's a rarity to have deaths on Bermuda registered ships.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. All right. That's the opposition leader's only member had questions for you, Deputy. The next statement is morning by Minister Birch. Minister Birch, you have a question from MP Richards. MP Richards, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the Honorable Minister, in the Honorable Minister's statement, he said that the property, Watley property, was purchased by the Bermuda Housing Corporation in March of 2008 with a view to developing the site. Would the Honorable Minister know how much was spent to acquire that property in 2008?
Minister?
I saw the figure. I don't recall what it is, but I can find out before we're finished this morning's question period.
MP, the minister said he doesn't have the number readily available. He will endeavor to get it before this today. The question is even finished.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the Honorable Minister. I would I have two follow-up supplementary questions to that, which may be with the information the Minister has. So if I could put those to him, and if he can acquire that as well.
Okay. Without you knowing the answer, you have supplementaries?
Well, because it's okay. Yes, it's multi-layered, to be fair, Mr. Speaker, but I can we can move on, because I do have a second question in this statement.
Go to your second question there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Minister said that.
Just note that your camera isn't on. You have your camera on.
Oh, it seems to be on. I apologize. Is that working any better?
In fact, you may have a problem because we've got a yellow triangle coming up, so I don't know what that means. But continue talking and just get a result.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Bermuda National Trust wanted the building donated to them. Given that the value of the building to the community is now evident, will the Bermuda Housing Corporation undertake any actions on a going forward basis to prevent the loss of these kinds of buildings, these kinds of community prized buildings currently in its care?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker?
Yes?
The funding for housing in this country for the last decade, so in the entire time the OVA was in government, has been restricted. I personally think, and as a minister, I think that it is unreasonable for all of the people who are in favor of saving historical buildings to expect that the government or the taxpayers are going to come up with the funding for it. I think that we also have a policy where we will look at balancing this between the funding that we have and the number of buildings that we have. And clearly, the number of buildings outweigh the funding that we have. And I think it's quite unreasonable for any entity, quite frankly, to expect that buildings should be retained and restored at the taxpayer's expense. I think that's quite unreasonable. I would think that the people who are interested in maintaining and retaining these buildings don't just come with a suggestion that they be retained, but make some effort to provide some funding so that they can carry on and do that. We will look and continue to look at the buildings that are in our remit, not just within the Housing Corporation, but within the ministry proper, and make decisions based on the funding that is available. I think colleagues will recall that in this year's budget, we had zero funding for maintaining residential units in the country to provide housing for people that are here today. We are still working through that exercise, and I hope to shortly announce some effort where we've been successful in securing funding to be able to work on providing housing for Bermudians.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable
Mr.
Minister.
Supplementary?
Would the Honorable Minister please inform this Honorable House how interested parties who do want to save buildings that are currently in the care of either the government or the Bermuda Housing Corporation go about, who do they approach? Is there a way that they're supposed to do that? I'm just mindful that someone did apparently approach the government in 2000 in the Bermuda National Trust approached the government to take care of the building, and that didn't work out. So how can that work out in the future? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, the Bermuda National Trust, I believe, has a policy of asking for properties for free. That's not realistic or reasonable. But if there are property, what we have experienced is people write to the ministry when they see a vacant and derelict property, not necessarily historic, but the same rules apply, indicating a proposal to renovate it and to have some consideration from the government to allow for a rent-free period so that they can get back their investment. That's a far more practical approach. The government will be very receptive to those type of approaches that are improving an asset that the government has without us having to come up with the funding. There are a number of those that are currently in place. Tusa House on Cedar Avenue being one, where a proposal and a lease has been signed on that. And there will shortly be a public announcement by the proprietors of that. And there are a number of residential units that are vacant and derelict that we have been approaching and had it flowing the other way from various contractors who have staff and resources and no work, but they have the funding. And so we've been working with them to bring them back online. That is a benefit on a multiple layer of fronts. One, the government gets an asset that is now no longer deteriorating, but also generating some revenue, and in many instances, providing housing for folks. So it's helping us greatly as a government in a time when there are limited funds to maintain or provide for new housing.
Thank you, Minister. And MP, you have a second supplementary or a new question?
No supplementary, no new question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you. Minister, there were no other members who indicated they had questions for you on this. So we move on to the next statement by Minister of Labor. Mr. Haywood, you have a question from MP Richards. MP Richards, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Minister in his statement said that there are 13 new training, career development, and employment programs that have been successfully delivered as it relates to the reemployment strategy. Would the Honorable Minister please inform this Honorable House how many of those 13 programs existed prior to the reemployment strategy?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, none of those programs existed prior to the reemployment strategy. They were all a part of the reemployment strategy, and that's why the word within the statement says new.
Supplementary?
None at this time. Thank you for that question. I have a new question, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, do your second question?
Yes, given the 650 persons have participated in various programs, that is face-to-face, on the job, online, virtual learning, webinars, internships, apprenticeships, and trainee programs. But we have 70 individuals who've received part-time or full-time employment as a direct result of those initiatives. That gives a success rate of about 10%. Is there any plan to improve upon those programs? Is the 10% what the ministry was seeking to achieve? Is that success? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think that the honorable member is measuring success wrong in this regard. If we have 650 people who are better prepared and qualified for job opportunities when they present themselves, that's certainly success from the government's lands. The member has to appreciate that we are currently in a contracting job market, which means it will be extremely difficult to place persons within jobs, as we see a shrinkage of jobs in our economy rather than expansion of jobs. But the aim of the Department of Workforce Development is better prepare persons for opportunities. And if we've achieved that in terms of better preparing persons for opportunities that exist, we measure that as a success. If those individuals go on to find full-time employment or part-time employment as a direct result of the training that has been provided, that is great, but I don't think that we look at and say that's only 10% of the individuals receive part-time or full-time training. As a result, we have a low success rate. I would say that those individuals who have been through that training are very much appreciative of the training that has been received and are better prepared to take advantage for opportunities when they do exist.
Thank you, Minister. Do you have a supplementary? Supplementary, MP Richards?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Given that, I thank the Honorable Minister for his response. Given that their participation is how we're determining whether or not this is worked out, is there, actually, Mr. Speaker, I would defer my question for a later written parliamentary question. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a third question?
I don't, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. MP Haywood, that brings a close to members have indicated their questions for you. We'll now move on to the next statement. The next statement for Minister of Education in reference to the University of West Indies, MP Famous.
Yep.
MP Famous?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
We can hear you. Put your question.
can you see me, Mr. Speaker?
Not yet, but
Okay, I'm having challenges with my bandwidth here.
that's what happens when you're down the east.
Now,
Hey, my friend.
the thing is, Mr. Speaker, I want to outfit today that matches your tie.
No wonder your camera's not working. No, that explains it all, see?
All right.
If it's red and blue, if your camera is red and blue, if your tie was red and blue, it'll work, see?
Yeah. I don't
Okay,
want.
what's your question, my friend?
Oh, okay, all right. Mr. Speaker, to the Honorable Minister of Education, Bermudians want to know, in a price-conscious environment, Bermudians would like to know what is the tuition and cost of students going to the University of West Indies.
Minister?
The open campus that we are having the fair for next week, the average total cost for a bachelor's degree is around $10,000. The average cost for a master's degree ranges between $7,900 and $10,000, and the average cost for a doctorate degree is $19,000.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Go right ahead.
Are those costs per semester or for the entire course?
Those costs are for the entire course, and that would be in U.S. dollars.
So could you reiterate supplementary, Mr. Speaker?
What you mean to reiterate? You want to not ask a second supplementary? You can ask a second supplementary.
Okay, I'll move on to our next question.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, as a member of the board of the Bermuda College, we often encourage our students to stay in Bermuda and do their first set of degrees here in Bermuda. What the question that then comes back is, are there credits transferable to these overseas schools? So what I'm asking the minister is, are credits from the Bermuda College transferable to the University of West Indies?
The question, thank you for that question, member. We are currently, the Bermuda College and the University of West Indies are currently in negotiations to produce an MOU and articulation agreement. The Bermuda College portion of that is completed, and it's now resting with the West Indies to complete their part. And as soon as they do, we anticipate that all suitable courses taken at the Bermuda College will be able to be transferred directly into the open campus curriculum, and you'll be able to start that much further ahead when if you do enroll.
So, final question, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary or new question?
New question, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, question 3.
Mr. Speaker, as we heard from Minister Hayward, often Bermudians are overlooked for employment in which they are suitably qualified. So, and sometimes that yardstick is that, oh, the school event isn't accredited, blah, blah, blah. So what I want to know from the minister, what I'd like to ask the minister, are UB courses comparable to other courses around the world? Are they up to scratch? That's what the Bermuda public want to know.
Thank you for that question, MP Famous. Not only are they up to scratch, they exceed most universities in the world. As I said within the statement, the University of West Indies is currently ranked in the top 4% of universities worldwide. They are the #1 university in the English Caribbean, in the South American region as well. It's a university that has established that, as persons may or may not know, started as an extension of the University of London, and it's now going on to its own right to become a powerful force of post-secondary education in the world. With 40, I believe it's around 42 campuses within 17 countries around the world as well.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Would the Honorable Minister be able to provide proof, as in alumni, proof to Bermudians that University of West Indies alumni produces some top scholars?
Well, the proof is in the pudding. The university, I don't have that information right with me, but the University of West Indies has produced notable persons especially within the Caribbean region. We're talking about politicians, doctors, lawyers, accountants, prime ministers, and the like. So their record is above reproach, and anyone that's willing to go and take a look at them will be able to see from the documentation on their website of the types of things that they have done over the years.
Final supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
would the minister, honorable minister, know that in our midst we have two medical doctors who are graduates of the University of West Indies. One is Dr. Roger Wong, and the other one is Dr. Asaram. Would the minister know that?
Yes, I would know that. As a matter of fact, Dr. Asaran is one of the former students, Bermudian students, that took advantage of the relationship that we have with the University of West Indies.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Mr.
Minister, there's no other member who's indicated they have questions for you on that statement. So we'll move on to your second statement. MP Jackson has a question, has indicated she has questions for you on your second statement. MP Jackson, would you like to put your questions at this point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick question. I'm just wondering if the minister might be able to tell us how many lost school days there were last year?
Minister?
Actually, at this point, I am unable to give the exact figure. We can estimate. We did at the end of semester one. We started the break half a week early. At the end of and we started the beginning of term two a week late, and then we started the beginning of term three. We ended it for 3.5 days early and started it a week late. So when you add that up, you're probably looking at around 20 odd days.
Supplementary?
No supplementary on that, Mr. Speaker.
Second question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm just curious with the very robust online programming for the summer. I'm just wondering what has been done to provide additional Wi-Fi access for students that don't have access to the internet in some areas that may have been identified where there are children and there isn't enough internet access. So what is the Ministry of Education, if anything, doing just to identify any gaps where students are not able to get online for the summer programs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Within the statement, it did speak about there may be opportunities for in-person, meaning actually at school, learning opportunities. Obviously, that will provide internet access there, but also in all of our libraries there is complimentary internet access for anyone that does show up. So that is another option for our students to use as well.
Thank you very much.
No further questions?
No further questions. That was lovely.
Thank you. Minister, that brings to the close of your questions. Minister Mean, we have two members who've indicated they have questions for you today. The first is the opposition leader. Opposition leader, would you like to put your questions to the minister?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to commend the gang violence reduction team for their services. My question is this. Can the minister confirm what procedures are in place for the gang violence reduction team and the CCR unit to share intelligence if there is nefarious activity or illegal activity involved during their deliberations with people?
Minister, did you hear all of that, or did you need it repeated?
I didn't get the last part.
You faded out a bit there. Just leader, could you just repeat it?
What procedures are in place for the gang violence reduction team and the CCR unit to share intelligence in regards to nefarious activities and illegal activities with Bermuda Police Service?
Good morning. The gang violence reduction team is currently part of IGET, and that would be the only information that is discussed. I'm sure you can understand that in some cases it would be of a confidential matter. So they are part of IGET, and that's the only level of interaction with the Bermuda Police Service.
What's IGET? What is I get?
I'm sorry, you're asking what does the you mean what does I get stand for, thing, or what is the actual committee?
What does I get stand for? Because I don't know what it is.
Interagency Gang Enforcement Task Force.
Okay, so so that's the only source of sharing information with Bermuda Police Services, is what you're saying?
Yes.
So, those are your two supplementaries. Do you have a second question?
Second question, yes. And I'm just expanding on what you just said. So if there are illegal activities and they have intelligence of illegal activities, they are not bound to report it directly to Bermuda Police Services. Is that correct?
Understand?
That would be correct. And what would happen normally in that situation, opposition leader, is that the gang violence reduction team would collaborate on what would be the best way forward in that situation. I'm sure you can imagine that there's several sensitivities around certain things, and a more structured approach that would have a strategy behind it is what needs to happen, because there would have to be safeties that need to be considered as well.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. No supplementaries from anyone else? Good. That brings us to a close of the question and answer period for this morning.
Mr. Speaker, MP Richardson, I had questions for Honorable Minister.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I did indicate there were two members who had questions for you. I'm sorry. Minister Meany, the second member who had questions for you today is MP Richards. MP Richards, put your question.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Speaker, and it's Richardson.
Richardson, I'm sorry.
Very proud St. David's family, who would not tolerate. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, with the Honorable Minister, in her statement, she said that the gang violence reduction team has proven to be quite effective. My question relates to that statement. Is the policy or intention of this team to reduce the participation in gangs altogether? Is it to take us down to no gangs whatsoever, no gang participation? What in a brief statement could you clarify that by what are they doing so well?
If he's up to speed or try to get your mic off and get it off, it would be great assistance. Thank you. Minister, did you hear his question clear?
I believe he asked what was the purpose of the gang violence reduction team?
Yes, Honorable Minister. My point was, is it to reduce gangs participation in gangs to zero?
Okay. Well, actually, in the second paragraph of the statement, it says that the team has been charged with the strategic development of prevention and intervention programs that target our at-risk population. But in addition to that, it would be to show our young people that there is an alternative to a gang lifestyle.
Supplementary?
None, Mr. Speaker. Second question?
Yes, you can go to your second question.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister in her statement said that the gang violence reduction team has a coordinated crisis response unit. What is the difference between the gang violence reduction team and the coordinated crisis response unit, especially as it relates to membership and cost?
The coordinated crisis response team has 3 volunteers and 3 gang violence reduction team staff members. The team also has a relationship with the community churches and the Bermuda Police Service. And if they need to, they can set up a hub in a community after any large incident. I'm sorry.
Further question? Supplementary?
Supplementary.
Yes?
How were the volunteers? Where did the volunteers originate? Are they known? Do we know who they are? Are we able to say who they are?
Is the question asking how do you get volunteers, or you want to name volunteers? Because I don't know if you necessarily want to always put volunteers out for something sensitive like this.
Fair enough. Then I would amend the question to say that how does someone volunteer to join the Coordinated Crisis Response Unit?
They can reach right out to the ministry and the gang violence coordinator directly.
And a third, no supplementary third question, Mr. Speaker.
Third question, go ahead, yes.
The Honorable Minister in her statement was announced the trainees, some 13 trainees who were moving into employment or post-secondary education. Are all of the trainees no longer members of criminal gangs?
Mr. Speaker, that would be information I would be unable to answer. The role of the program is to provide mentorship and to continue to show our young people that there is an alternative to a gang lifestyle. So what we would hope to achieve in that is that they choose not to be involved in gangs. But if you're asking me to confirm that, I would be unable to confirm that.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Mr. Speaker. No further questions.
Thank you. Members, we finished with about 4 minutes left on the clock, I think it is. So we'll now move on to the next item on the order paper. And the next item is the congratulatory and obituary speeches. Would any member like to make a contribution at this time?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.